In today's video, we're going to answer the question of how much do you actually need to retire with $50,000, $80,000, or $150,000 per year. We'll break down how much you need to save for each of these retirement spending levels. Through my countless consultation with clients, this question remains one of the most frequently asked, and quite often, the answer is surprisingly better than you might expect. The trouble is that there is a lot of information out there, all leading to different outcomes, leaving many people to delay retirement unnecessarily. So in today's video, we are going to work on solving this problem by walking through my financial planning software together to see where you can retire on $50,000, $80,000, or possibly $150,000 per year. As a bonus, I'm going to share my thoughts on where the 4% rule fails most Americans, and we'll model this out as well. And let's get right into it. But let me set the stage of what we're modeling first, and as an extra disclosure, there are so many assumptions done in this video that it's going to look so different than your actual plan. This is meant to show you how I think about financial planning on the highest level. So remember that the costs inside these numbers include housing, food, vacations, healthcare, everything. The program also doesn't know your family history or longevity or a change in spending habits or needs. In our example, this family is going to retire at their full retirement age of 66 years old. So we are going to just say this family lives until 90 years old as well. Some might say that $50,000 is almost impossible to live on these days, but if you have your housing costs taken care of, which is a huge line item for many Americans, it just might be doable. So as we jump in here together, I just want to share a couple things on how we're presenting this information. I'm going to use all present value here, which means it takes all that future inflation and brings it back into today's value. We're also going to use a Monte Carlo analysis. And what Monte Carlo is it takes this moderate portfolio and it runs 1,000 different iterations randomly, and then it stack ranks them. So you've got the best, you've got a middle, and you've got the end, right, of 1,000. And we're going to use the 50% trial in here. And so in our example here, we've got $50,000, of which $36,000 is coming from Social Security as income. We've got $50,000 a year of spending. And what I did to figure out how much we might need is I started with $100,000 and I continuously added more money until we have an 82% probability of success with all of that information that we discussed earlier. And so $215,000, I mean, that might be a little bit surprising to you, and especially if you've heard about this 4% rule that's out there. But one of the things that I think most people miss, and why the 4% rule sometimes isn't always the best gauge, is that your Social Security income is a significant portion of your retirement plan. And if you were to discount all these $36,000 plus inflation throughout your life, there is a present value here that is worth over $800,000. And so you add in that 800 plus this 215 and you get closer to that 4%. So where the 4% rule fails in this situation is that you might think you need $1.25 million to retire, but in our example, you have Social Security being more than 50% of your spending needs. And so all of a sudden, you don't need as big of a portfolio. So if your income is going to be primarily of Social Security, you really don't need as much of that 4% as someone who needs a much larger income and much larger spending needs in retirement, where they're going to really need more capital and more assets to continue to live off of their money. So in this example, the 4% rule isn't as relevant because you're getting so much money from Social Security. The one thing I want to make mention of is that 82%, it's fine, it's a fine number. But if we get down and just have a $10,000 expense that kind of comes in unexpectedly, what happens? This number drops down to a 27% success rate. And the other thing to think about, right, in all these scenarios is that, again, we're not assuming any kind of longevity here. If you said, Nathan, our family has an earlier longevity, maybe it's our mid to early 80s. In these examples, you have some assets here, so the probability of success would be significantly higher. But at the same time, I have some clients right now where their parents and or grandparents are living well into their late 90s. And as you can see here, this example, you run out of money at age 89. So, you're really just relying now on that Social Security income. So just some food for thought. So then as we jump into the $80,000 per year, so I continue to add more money into the 401k. In our examples, all this money is going to be retirement assets. And it's the same Social Security income. And here we got to a number of $770,000. So here it's a lot more money that you do need because the spending has gone up. So even though the spending has gone up only $30,000 from our first example, the capital needs that you need have gone up over $500,000. And this is because, as you can see here, the Social Security number is less than 50% of your spending needs. So you're going to need more assets to grow and to take dividends and income from in order to have that be part of your retirement planning. And same assumptions with age, but in this example, if you have a $10,000 expense in 2028, the probability of success jumps down to 68%. Kind of reminds me of that first college exam I took. Not great, but I don't know, maybe it's passable. So maybe it's fine if you get through there and some of these other numbers change, but something to think about. And the reason it doesn't go down to 27% like the other one is that $10,000 out of 770, it's obvious, but it's a lower percentage of that amount that's being drained. So just something to think about. And then in our last example, we have $150,000. So again, all else being equal, here I continue to move that up into that $2.1 million. And you start to see that 80%, 81% success rate. And we're going to model out a one-time expense here. What does that do? Brings it down to 42%. And in this example, I used a higher number because if you are spending $150,000, typically you have much larger expenses on an ongoing need. But the one thing, right, that we notice here is that this number is a little bit closer, at least, to that 4% rule because you're using significantly less now of your Social Security as part of your income in retirement. So that's where I want to just caution people that you're using the 4% rule because it really depends on how much other income you have and how much money you need, right? So are you including your rental income from your investment properties? Are you including pensions, any annuities, any other income that might add into your plan where you don't necessarily need the assets to draw down on because you have those other income sources that are paying for your lifestyle? So another thing to think about here is this is a minimal viability in which it doesn't leave all that much room for error. It doesn't leave any kind of room for giving more money to grandkids or a charity or other things that might change or healthcare events in your life. And so when you're building out these plans, I really don't like to build out to that minimum number. It just kind of shows you where that minimum number might start to look, especially when I do financial planning with clients and when I ask them, how much money do you spend? They might actually say something like 50,000 or 80,000. But when we really go through the planning together, it's $50,000 of fixed costs, right? They know their grocery bills, they know their car payments, but what they don't know is that the roof needs to get repaired in 2 years. They don't know that they might have some healthcare event that drains a little bit more of their money. So that's where you do need to build in a little bit of a buffer. I just thought it would be an interesting exercise to show you that there are ways in which you can retire if you want to live off of these different numbers. You just have to build it around your financial plan. So Now that you know the factors to consider when planning retirement, you can start to create your own plan. However, when it comes down to your retirement, everyone's different, which is why it's so important to seek financial advice if you aren't confident or feel like you might be missing out on something or just want a partner. And if you want a team to look into your situation, click on that first link in the description below. And if you're not ready to do that, that's okay too. We're just getting to know each other here, and I'll continue to put out more videos where you'll hopefully learn something new on the next video.